Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Crystal here. Duh. Or you wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't know who it was, probably, because I've already played my intro before. I'm rambling. I am excited today. I have had a really incredible conversation, as per usual, with Carla Rinaldi, who is originally Australian and has lived in London for the past 11 years and worked for a salon that I think most of us would probably know, Not Another Salon. So Carla was on the floor there as well as managing there, and she walks us through everything, how she grew in that role, how she grew a clientele through other salons in London as well, starting from scratch, how it was hard, how it isn't easy, and how you do have to take a pay cut or take a pride cut almost. You go in thinking you are ready for the top dogs, and anywhere you go, anytime you go to a new salon, you're learning and you're growing and you're adapting. And that's something that I think was really important out of this conversation. She has since recently moved back to Australia at maybe not an opportune time, or arguably a really opportune time, because it has been lockdown. And she is doing some really amazing things, starting her own education company, making massive waves over here, networking, getting Instagram going, doing all of that. And yeah, really an inspiration. I've enjoyed listening to her. She is so wise and actually brings a different perspective than, just not, I hate saying just a hairdresser, but just a hairdresser, by having this management experience. And she's actually won an award for, I just am reading because I don't want to get it wrong, the UK and Ireland Manager of the Year. So that's huge, and to have that, you can tell in the way that she speaks and in the way that she talks, that she has that knowledge and that experience, and that it is something that would set her apart. So I loved this conversation. I hope that you will too. I think it's something different, a different perspective than maybe what we've had on the podcast before. And I couldn't wait to sit down and talk to her. So without further ado, myself and Carla Rinaldi.
Yeah,
Okay,
ready.
today, me, Carla Rinaldi, I've been waiting for you. It's been a while getting this going. We're two busy women, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, we are so busy. Like, it's actually crazy. And I think that we only worked down the road from each other.
I
Do you
know.
know?
And then
For
I
the
was
last,
saying, like, I'm always like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And I'm like, do people just think I'm so annoying that I'm like not actually busy? But then I watch you and like, it's a lot hustling behind the scenes of all the things you try to get going. And I know you've started an education company that we'll get into, but
yeah.
all of these things, running an Instagram, running a column, running a business, is a lot. And so it's been hard to coordinate us, but I'm so glad that we could make the time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited as well. Thank you so much. I love talking to like-minded women,
Uh-huh.
that we're getting to go.
100%.
But you're so right about all of those jobs. We have so many things that we need to do now. It's not just doing a few color corrections anymore, is it?
I know. And I used to think like, I remember when I first got into this career and coming home and getting home and not having anything to do after work. Like, my friends were in uni and they had like homework to do, or I was used to being in hair school or high school. And I was like, what do you mean I can just come home and do nothing? And I'm like, oh, where did those days go? I could
Oh
just
my
sit on the
God,
couch
Crystal, it is
and my
so
brain
true.
wasn't rolling and rolling and rolling.
No, I know. I think you're completely right. Like the other night, I just couldn't switch off. I had
Yeah.
ideas going through my head. Like I was like, and then I write them down next to
Me
my bed on a
too.
little
I do
notebook. Do you
the
as well?
same thing. My boyfriend's like, what the hell you doing with the flashlight on? It's 1 a.m. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm writing notes, leave me alone.
I know. And then I look at them in the morning and I go, oh well, I'm not going to do that. What a stupid idea.
It's like, that's so funny. It's like you have this delusional alter ego. Like, I don't know. It's like this different person is in my brain at night. Like, I would never think of the things I think of at night during the day. Do
So
you have,
true.
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
That's funny.
And I have
I'm
this thing
laughing that you
called,
forget that you don't like
yeah,
the
I
ideas in the
forget.
morning.
I don't like the ideas in the morning. It's so weird. And I'm like, why do I come up with that? But then every now and then I'll have a really good idea. But you know what the worst thing is? 3:30 artists. I can't do anything
Oh,
at 3:30. I actually get crash. I have a crash.
yeah.
And I have to
What
have
do
a
you mean, in
break
the afternoon or in the morning?
in the afternoon.
Oh,
So
okay. I
like
was like
that's
3:30 in the morning is probably a good time to call
oh
it quits, you know?
no, absolutely. I've been going to bed early actually.
Oh,
trying
good
to
for
get up
you.
earlier. I
Good for
know.
you. All right. Well, I would love to just start. How I love to get into every kind of episode is how you got into the industry because you are a successful hairdresser and run a column and all of those things. So, was that something that you always wanted to do, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah. So do you know what? I always knew that school wasn't for me.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. So I was definitely not a student at school. Hated it, but loved the social aspect of it.
Yep.
And then
Didn't we all?
I think, yeah, it was great. I loved getting kicked out of class just to go to the principal's office for talking too much. That was me. And so, yeah, and so I went into my apprenticeship, and to be honest, I loved it straight away. So I never really looked back. I think it's just sort of
And
how
that
I
was
fell
here in
into it, really.
Australia.
Yeah, in Adelaide. So I started
Okay.
off in Adelaide in like the northern suburbs. So quite a sort of small suburban salon, and then made my way up and moved to the city to work for quite a reputable brand that has now turned into Mr. Morris. It used to be Lush Hair. So now,
Ah,
yeah,
cool.
it's beautiful.
And how long did you work there?
I was just a short of 4 years.
Okay, and that was throughout your apprenticeship. So you did like your 3 year apprenticeship kind of thing through them?
Yeah, exactly. So I did signed off at third year and then smashed out a real fun year. And then I had to go and say to my boss, who I absolutely adored at the time, that I was ready to move to London and leave. And I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but I hate quitting. Like
Yeah.
I am just like I would rather stay unhappy for ages than actually send that email or go in and talk to someone
Oh
about
my
quitting.
God, totally. 100%. I remember bawling, like weeping when I quit from my
Yeah.
salon at home. Like I couldn't contain he's like, why are you crying? You're going to Australia? And he was like helping me, like, oh, you should go here. This person, I know this person. And I was just like weeping. Like I felt so bad about leaving. Like as if his business was gonna crumble by me going, Like we
Yeah.
kind of put ourselves in this position where we think that you're blowing yourself away with the aircon.
I am sorry, darling. It's making my nose run. We'll
Go
take that
get
part
a tissue, do
off.
whatever you need to do. We can pause
No,
into you.
I washed my
That's so
Pomeranian last night. That's why. It's the hair flying everywhere.
I would die. I'm so allergic. That's so funny. And so when you were going to London, what was the plan? Like to do hair? Were you going to have this like gap year and move and travel? Because that was my plan. My plan was not necessarily to come and do hair. I was just at a point that I knew I had built a strong enough clientele where I came from that if I left for a year or 6 months or whatever I did, I knew I could come back and pick up. I knew I had a spot to come back to, like all of those things. So I wasn't necessarily coming to grow my career. And how,
Yeah. Yeah,
what
completely
was your
agree.
plan with that?
So the original plan was to just literally get on that plane and get out of Adelaide. And I'd be very honest, I knew there was something more for me out there. And it's not, saying anything bad about Adelaide, but I was always had this something inside me. And I always thought Melbourne, Melbourne, Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I was driving home one day. So I booked the ticket, went to London, didn't ideally think to stay longer than 18 months. And 11 and a half years later, I moved home.
Were you there for
So
that long?
yeah, I
Oh my
really
God,
was
I
because
didn't know that.
it was, yeah, I would still classify myself as a Londoner sometimes.
You
Like I
have an
really miss
accent.
it. Oh, thank you. Not many people say that I do, but
I think you
we're going to
do.
go with that, Crystal.
People think I do, and I'm like, what? Me? I have this weird mismatch, I don't know, mismatch
Oh,
thing.
I love it.
Oh my
It
God, I
makes
didn't
us
know you were there for
individuals.
that long. So how were you able
Yeah.
to stay for that long? Because I know like I'm in the rigmarole of visa processes and things that you are not aware that happen. Like you think, I don't know, maybe I was just naive and didn't know, and I never knew anyone who moved, but I felt like you could just move and live where you want and do what you want if you had the balls to do it. And it's so not the case. So how were you able to stay there?
Yeah. So my mum's English, which I'm very fortunate to have the dual
Ah,
passport. Yeah.
one
And
of those.
the only thing I would say though about it, and just to make you feel a little bit better, is sometimes I had too much option. Okay.
Yeah.
So every year, especially my colleagues from London, they'll tell you this. I was like, yeah, I'm moving back to Australia. I've had enough. And then next week, nah. So it didn't really give me
A
much
definitive end
structure
date.
because I
Yeah.
had too much choice. Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't take it back for a second, but life and hair industry, molded in together, like, there's a lot of aspects that Australia was always pulling me back to. And I knew I had to come back eventually. So I'm glad I finally did it. and came back. But yeah, you get addicted. Like the passport, it's just the golden ticket.
100%.
To be honest.
And it's also something that I struggle with and toy with is the fear of all I want to do is go home. Like I envision myself back in Canada eventually, and I'm afraid of going back and then it not being what I want anymore. And then what do you do? And I can imagine you've completely gone through that as well. And especially like I've been gone 4 years, never mind 11. I think every year is a bit harder, right? Everybody moves and develops, and all my friends who lived in that same 5-minute radius as me live an hour all different ways. Like it would be quite challenging.
Well, just want to be very on brand here and be super authentic. I'm going to be super honest, is that it's really hard. And I'm only at year 2. And I think last year was one of the hardest years of my life for myself on a self journey. Leaving a country that you know after 11 years, and just even small little details that you're so used to, you know, walking into Sainsbury's instead of Woolworths. And, you know, it's just all these little things. And I still say pounds instead of dollars. And no, and on an industry perspective, I've had networks and relationships that I've built overseas that, you know, I could pick up the phone and chat to them. And now I have to sell myself from scratch again and prove myself. And I'm not complaining at all.
No,
but it is difficult.
And that's very much, even you saying that is very, I think it's something we might share in common, that, you know, I don't want to complain about it or this, but it's like you feel bad for feeling shit because you are that person who is the leader or the mentor or, just fell.
Exactly. Sorry, fell over.
I've done that many a time, don't you worry. But you're that person who is kind of, you want to be in that role of being there for everybody else. And it's very hard to admit that you're having a shit one too. And I'm finding that maybe in this little bit right now too, like I'm navigating where I'm at. And it's hard to say, I'm actually having a bad day.
It is. And do you know, 100%, Crystal. And do you know what as well? Like you will always go to the people that will soften you a little bit and let you speak. And I noticed that I was actually going to friends and colleagues that were a bit more hard-assed at this time, that were actually saying, Carla, get your shit together. Like, do you know what you're doing? But also sometimes you need to go, actually, wow, look at these changes that we've actually made. You know, you come across, forget COVID, this was even before COVID. It's a different way of life. It's a different way of structure, and things are slower in Australia. Over the other side, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just things happen a little bit more because we have quality of life here. Whereas London, everything's very fast, very quick, and it happens and you adapt. But when you say, you actually triggered me with something, Crystal, just wanted to go back, that you said it's scary to admit that we're not okay. And a lot of people classify it as weak here. Whereas back sort of my experience, it's actually a strength. That's my belief anyway.
Yeah.
If I'm not having a good day, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Because it makes me feel better.
Totally. And you know what? Especially in a team environment, if I know you're having a shit day and you're being a little, hard to work with, at least I know you're having a bad day. Whereas when somebody...
never.
I mean, I don't know personally, but I actually think, rather than coming in and kind of ignoring the team or not, talking to somebody or just focusing on you, somebody, it can be hard for the rest of the team when you are in a salon environment like that. But maybe that is a great tidbit from you too, to just say it. Like I felt like it yesterday. I'll be honest. I felt like it yesterday. And I was like, should I tell them I've just had a cry on the way to work? And I was like, nah, it's fine. Like it wasn't a big deal, but just, you're right that it's hard to be vulnerable like that. And we are trained, and I do believe in this motto at work too, of leave your shit at the door. You're here, to work, but I guess within reason, that it's okay.
Within reason, Actually, just touching on that, I agree, because I've worked, it's very hard, because when it comes to the salon environment, I do agree with the fact that you should leave your stuff at the door. But I always have one hype man in the salon, or you have your person, your work wife or your work husband, and you just take them aside for a second. I always used to recommend, especially in my management time, don't do it in the salon. Just step outside for 2 seconds and say, hey, babe, I'm having a shit day. Should we put some good music on today? Let's get through this day and let's turn it around. And to be honest, once you've said it, you're laughing within a few minutes.
So
like it's very
true.
rare.
Yeah.
Very rare that your mood changes, and music is a really big thing for me. So a lot of my main complaints will be, oh my God, I hate this song. Can you change this song? Oh my gosh, I love this song. In the salon, always, because it changes my mood, and I'm such an atmosphere person, so, and I know that my clients are feeling that from me. So same with colleagues, and it changes, it does change your environment, your mood. Sorry. Yeah.
Love it. Love this. Okay, I want to go into London and how you arrived, and like, did you have a job lined up when you went? Did you know where you wanted to work? Did you work the same place all the time? What's your kind of London story, and how
Oh
did
my
you
gosh.
start making those networks and connections and all of it?
Yeah,
Building
absolutely.
yourself in a
So
foreign country.
it was really difficult the first year, but super fun. So I always say this, I was the poorest I was ever in my life. I earned £6 an hour, and I was so happy.
Oh
I'll
my
be honest.
God.
Yeah. Because do you know what? I had a break. I had a break from hairdressing for 1 month. I actually had some really intimidating interviews with a few large salon groups over in the UK.
Yeah.
And they basically told me straight away, you have to retrain. Your skills aren't good enough. You don't have what it takes to make it over here. Like really blunt, honest feedback.
London hair industry is very hard, or
Yeah,
also holds themselves at a different standard that maybe, isn't.
yeah, absolutely. And retraining is like, now looking back, I mean, I was 21, right? Or 20, just turned 22. Looking back, I thought I was the bee's knees, and I absolutely wasn't. But I was not ready to hear that. And I can admit that completely. It intimidated me. I didn't want to tell anyone that, I wasn't good enough. I thought that I was the best, my half head of highlights back to back. That's all I could do. So, balayage wasn't even a thing then.
Yeah.
And so I left, and I had a little break, and I worked at a little cute store called Joy the Store. And I had a great time, enjoying London and being a 20-year-old. But that didn't last long, Crystal. I got bored very quickly and realized that my passion was still hairdressing. And I quickly found a job at a salon. Actually, I couldn't get into the industry. It was really difficult at first for me. So I just took a job as a receptionist for 6 weeks until the stylist left, so that I could just get and take all her clients, and she moved back to Australia, actually. So that's how,
So that was the plan when they hired you. They said that, like, work reception. Then don't you think that that actually is a really beneficial way of going about it? Because one, you get to learn how the salon operates. You get to learn the booking system. You get to learn the timing. You get to know the clients. You get to know the staff on a different level. I started as a receptionist as well. That's why I felt like
fantastic.
Yeah, I worked at this. I was one of 10 receptionists. It was wild. It was
Oh my God, I
massive.
love that.
It was huge. And it was like the
Very
best.
Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah. I was so shit at it, so probably not my best job, but I tried.
I was terrible at it as well. Don't worry, Crystal. I was like, get me on the floor. Anytime someone needed a rough dry, I was there.
It's like the joke. Like, I'm like, nobody put me on the desk. I always stuff it up. But it's just one of those things that I think is really beneficial to getting in and starting and doing that, to understand the booking system and probably, did you find anything was different in London than Australia, like in how they operate?
Oh yeah, I mean, we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But would you say from a reception and a management perspective, or?
No, probably anything. Like, I felt like when I came here, I had only ever known departmentalized salons. So I specialized in color. All of my colors, everything was handed off. I didn't even touch a brush or a blow dryer,
Yeah, true.
And then I came here, and it seemed like quite a bit were both, and it was encouraged to do both. It was just something different, and booking times were different, and little things like that was a little bit different getting used to.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you work on a faster pace in London, in the UK or overseas. But I would say it would just be more the talking and the communicating that I found in London you get more time for than I did originally back here. But I don't think I can compare, because the industry's changed so much in the last 11 years that I've been away. So when I did my apprenticeship, I would say that I was still in this different mentality. There was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. It was all word of mouth. So if I can compare to now, I would say Australia and the UK, we're getting so close. We're nearly on par. And you probably feel the same with Canada. the way the quality has just gone to the next level all over the world of hairdressing. But sorry to digress, but going back to, you know, something that's different, I would say booking systems, you know, and, you know, booking clients in, I would say the difference is that you make friends with your clients versus like they become your family in the UK. So it could be big city mentality. I don't know whether New York and you know, bigger cities
Toronto,
have the same sort of,
yeah.
you know, whereas here I really do feel like your client's your client and you don't cross that barrier. You know, sometimes I'd do someone's hair in, you know, on a Saturday afternoon, and she'd bring a bottle of wine. We'd be drinking we'd drink the wine at the last, you know, session.
Yeah.
And off we go out for the night. You know, you don't even go home to get ready because your clients become those people you grow with and they become part of your family over there. That's where I would say it's very different. I don't necessarily think that one's
better than the other or one's right
better
or
than
wrong.
the other. I think it's just different. And especially in my 20s, and I didn't know anyone, I took it.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that also I always am grateful for with our industry is the fact that it is social. People are always like, oh, like, did you have friends before you move, or, you know, before you came over here, did you know anyone? And I was really lucky. I had friends before I moved, but a massive chunk of my friends here is my friends from the salon. And I've been really lucky. I've worked in 4 different salons since I've been here. And every salon I have a new friend group because everybody in not everybody in the industry, but, you know, a good majority are like-minded, are of similar age, have similar interests. You have the same days off. You work the same evenings and weekends. So my girlfriends don't understand who aren't hairdressers that I actually don't want to go out on a Friday night. I'm so sorry. I actually can't go for a wine. No, I have to go home and ice my feet.
Oh my God, Crystal, I know I'm going to tell you how much I sympathize with this. He's probably going to tell me off, my best friend, for saying this. But since I've gone freelance and I'm starting Root Society, like the education, he keeps calling me going, so what are you doing today? You just got the day off. No, I'm working. Yeah, excuse you. And he goes, but you're not doing hair. And I said, yes, darling, I'm working. I'm in front of the laptop. I don't get it. I said, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to get it. But it's infuriating. But at the same time, I thought, you know what? That's fine. He doesn't get me in that part, and that's fine.
That's so funny.
I know. It was very interesting.
And so I would love to kind of dive in because you have a very unique experience in London with a salon that you worked for that I think people would be quite familiar with. And I would love to kind of hear how that happened for you. And you worked at Not Another Salon.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. A fantastic time in my career. I actually, I worked there about 6 months after the salon opened.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
joined
how did that,
Sophia and the team. So basically, I actually left a previous salon after 6 years. So I worked the salon before Not Another Salon. I was there for 6 years. I was freelance as well there, but like, you know, running my own column, very, very busy.
And does that mean, sorry, just for people who maybe don't understand, does that mean you are renting a chair within that salon space and the money is going to you, or you're on a commission structure? What does that kind of mean?
Absolutely.
Because
so
it's quite different overseas versus here.
Absolutely. So we were commission based in this particular company. Yeah. So we would depending on your level. So if you went up to different seniors and different management, you could earn up to 50% of your takings, and then you would pay your own. Yeah, it was really good. And you'd pay your own VAT and tax. But, you know, we still had a lot of structure where you'd have to go in the certain hours and, you know, it was still very, you know, an employed environment with, if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't have discipline. So great money, great team, good opportunities, but just not enough for me. So I searched around a little bit more, and I thought, oh, what can I do? And it was actually this one particular picture that Not Another Salon posted that I really attracted me to it. It was like a blue, beautiful melt. And I thought, oh, I like that salon. What's that? And Instagram, I think I had 4 followers, you know, it was, you don't see much on it at this point. I actually hated Instagram when it first came out. So I thought, oh, this is nice. And I got my boyfriend at the time on the Sunday to go have a little stalk down Brick Lane and have a little look. And I thought, stuff it, I'm going to apply. So I did print out my CV, had a big wide brim hat, and I walked on in. And I said to the receptionist, because I'm a real big believer in speaking to the owner and going in person. Like, I'm not really
100%.
behind. Yeah. And this is how I like to get jobs. I'm a bit old school. Yep. So yep. I literally went in, and the receptionist, and I said, can I please speak to the owner, to Sophia? And she goes, no, darling, she's busy. And I said, no, I'd really like to speak to her. Yeah. She goes, no, she's busy. And I was like, oh, but I think she'll like me better in person. And it was so funny. I just stood there, and then I thought, okay, Carla, calm down. You're being too pushy. So I left my CV, and and I left and whatever. And I didn't get the call for a few days. I was actually on the way to get a spray tan. I was literally about to step into the spray tan booth, and Sophia goes, do you want to come for a trial today or an interview? Oh. And I was like, spray tan job, spray tan. And I thought, okay, I'll ditch the spray tan. So yeah, I went down there, and then sort of was history. Yeah, and then we went from there. So, which was really exciting. And that was about 4.5 years ago, I think now.
Wow. And so you've watched it kind of from the ground up. And were you applying at that time? Because I know you did step into management, but you were applying for a job on the floor at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think going back to what I said previously earlier as well, was one thing in my old company, and what I find happens a lot in career steps, is you get to a point where you've grown so much that your ego becomes quite large, and I'll own it. I was very good in my previous salon, which was in South London. So I had a real shock to my system when I joined the Not Another team, not because I wasn't good enough, but because I wasn't at that level. I had to shake it up again. My career,
because it was a different type of coloring. Like what you were doing was maybe more classic, and what they're known for is their melts and their fashion tones and all of these things. And is that where you felt like, okay, that's exactly how I felt where I just went?
Yeah, I was intimidated, 100%. And, I mean, I went home crying quite a few nights, and I'm a very big fan of foilage, because I'm an Australian, and Sophia won't mind me saying this, but she's a very big fan of freehand. And I think her and I actually had a disagreement over it once, because she didn't like foil and I loved freehand, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we had a disagreement. I said, but I really need to get my client maximum lift today. So she let me do it in the end, and we ended up having a beautiful working relationship in that respect.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, because when you start in a new company, no matter how big, you're the newbie, and you don't know what their techniques are. So,
and exactly, and every salon has their own techniques. And the reason why I left my salon that I was previously with was I was just, to be honest, and I don't think it's any secret, I was bored. I was doing the same blonde hair all day, every day. I was finding it a snooze. And I applied to, I am going straight.
I love that. I'm going to use that, a snooze.
It's like, yawn. Boring.
That's brilliant.
My boyfriend does, this is so rude. My boyfriend does that to me when I'm telling a story and it's a bit boring. Maybe he'll go, yawn. I'm like,
yawn.
Is that too long of a story? Anyway,
oh my gosh, bless
the
him.
reason I applied to the salons that I did in just last year when I was finding a new place was for exactly that reason. I knew my skill is freehand. I love it. That's what I'm good at. That's, my thing, and I can foil and I can do all that. But I was uncomfortable when I would get a fashion tone or a scalp lightener or something like that. And it's like, when it's not in your repetition, it's not like if you don't use it, you're
moving around,
but a little bit, the fear settles in where you're like, oh, I haven't done that in a while. Like, oh, and I went to this salon and I have 10 years experience, and I felt like, oh my God, have I never colored hair before?
That's exactly how I felt.
And a new color line too. I found that quite challenging.
Yep. And it's not even, sorry, I do apologize. I'm just trying to move the charger thing here around.
No drama.
I have this issue with the phone at the moment, not charging.
If you need to plug it in and take your headphones out, you can.
Okay, we might do that in a minute. Is that okay?
Yeah. Let me know.
Yeah, let you know. Sorry. Go.
Everybody has this problem. It's not a new thing. It's just that the headphones cut out me talking in yours, but I can fix it. So don't stress.
Okay, thank you so much. I would too.
So were you using a different color line there as well, or was it just that the demographic of the clients was different?
So in Not Another Salon or the salon
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, Not Another Salon.
Yeah, a little bit of both. So obviously known for a lot more vivid work. I loved creative color. So as you say, snooze fest in my old place. Absolutely. But financially, when you're making a lot of money, it's really scary to leave a company.
Yeah.
And this is something where I was really nervous to do because you have to take a step back financially to get creatively
you have to
ahead.
start over again. Yeah.
You
Because
have to
you're
start
going in
again.
without a clientele. You're going in kind of blank again, and you can't be getting paid X when you don't have anybody coming in the door.
That's right. And when you don't have those skills that particular company does, you have to step down to learn their skills.
Yeah.
So you just got to bite it. So yeah, we learned, was very fortunate. Us and the team, like all of us in the team, were able to use probably every creative color under the sun. You know, you name it: crazy color, manic panic, pulp riot. Random ones, movie, Arctic Fox. So the knowledge that we got by making mistakes, it was so much fun. But also you can apply creative color techniques to natural, and that's what my passion is natural as well. And just, making these colors look absolutely gorgeous. But learning a different brand is important, but also not being bored, like you said, because that's what
I
it
like
was.
having a variety.
That's why we changed salons.
Yeah, 100%. And then
having the option.
Yeah, totally. And then at some point after working on the floor for a while there, you did transition into a management role. How did that kind of come about? Because I think that's something maybe you could relate to. Something that I experience is I have all these visions, I have these ideas, I know I want to do more than working behind the chair, and I know that my body actually cannot work 5 days behind the chair. I can't do it. So I know that I want to go into something else, but I have found, and sometimes it's a visa thing too, where you don't want to ruffle any feathers in case, there's definite factors. However, I feel like sometimes I don't feel comfortable approaching the situation saying, hey, like I actually want to do more freelance, or I want to do this. Like, how do you go about approaching your boss saying, I'm not totally happy on the floor, and then getting into a management role? Like, how did you feel about that, or how did that happen?
You know what? That's a really good question. I'm going to answer that question first and then how I got in, because that is a really good question. It's true. Like, how do you approach your boss to tell you you're unhappy? I feel like it's the most powerful thing you could actually do in your career. I would always book a meeting. So I would always say, look, and not a text message, because it's a real anxiety-ridden thing when you receive a text message. You always think your staff is leaving when you get a text message.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, it's not that I want to resign. I'm not done. Like, I'm happy doing this, but I need to have a plan of something else.
Exactly. So, I'd book a meeting and I'd say, look, this is what I'm feeling. What are the options within the company? And generally, they'll always come up with an option. If you're working for a company that you still see growth in and they still see growth with you, they will find a position for you. And at the time of the management that happened for us at Not Another, I actually didn't want it, believe it or not, because I managed my previous salon and I really enjoyed just learning and being a hairdresser. Because one thing that happens when you turn into a manager is you now are managing your friends.
Yeah. Especially I guess when you're managing a salon that you've worked at. Yeah, totally.
Right. So when you're promoted within, it's not just as easy as 1, 2, 3, boom, now I'm in charge. And I like to call us leaders instead of management. I just say management because it rolls off my tongue.
Yeah.
Because I was a manager in my previous salons, and I would say in Not Another, and what I aim to do now is to lead, because you learn different skills, because you can't tell people off. You need to be there to support them. So I knew I had a lot to learn. And I think in the end, I got talked into it. Or I think Harriet, Sophia, and I were actually at an event. This is what actually happened. We were at the British Hairdressing Awards. And I was like, I'm moving back to Australia. And Sophia and Harriet literally said, nah, you're not. you're gonna manage Not Another. And I said, oh, okay, fine. Why not? Let's do another 5 years. And that's how it happened, actually. I'm not even joking. I just did it a little bit tipsy. That red wine will get you every time.
That's the key. Write that in the notes.
Exactly. So, and it was an exciting time, and I threw myself into it. And I think, being a real goal-focused girl, I'm a bit naughty. I throw myself into my goals, and neglect the other aspects of my life sometimes. So I gave it my all. And here we are. Yeah, it's definitely challenging, because I would say that in London you have a lot of characters who are, like me. We're all ambitious.
Yeah.
If you have a salon full of ambitious staff, you can imagine the questions that come up. So those meetings you were talking about that everyone is nervous to do, this team wasn't nervous. they weren't nervous at all. I'm bored. What can I have? So it was a whole new way of leading and management.
So interesting. Do you think that stepping into that role, and I feel like this is something that I've learned from doing the podcast and from talking to people who are in an ownership role, a management role, any of those things, that do you think it made you appreciate previous bosses you've had and realize how effing hard it is? Or like, I feel like when you're on the floor, say this is just an example, and I'm just gonna speak for myself. I'm like, I'm bringing in all this money. This is what I'm getting paid. This is shit. And then once I started doing this podcast, I'm thinking about the fact that they're paying my super. They're, that money that I'm bringing in every week, part of that's going to my annual leave. Part of that's going to my super. Part of that's going to my rent. Part of that's going to my product line. And then I'm getting the rest. And here I am looking, and I'm like, I'm not even getting a 50-50 cut. And I'm, breaking my back, like all these things. So do you think that going into that opened your eyes a little bit to the ratios and kind of how it balances out? Or did you open your eyes to be like, oh, this actually really isn't fair?
No, 100%. It did open my eyes. And I will say it is definitely lonely being an owner sometimes. And it's, I know that I didn't own it, but I definitely felt partnerships, and I felt like we walked along that same line at times.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was definitely, the things I saw and the things that you have to do. And it's difficult, and it's never stop grinding. And you can't actually show as an owner, you can't really, and a manager, you can't really show, your fear sometimes, because you might have not hit target that week, but all your stylists have. So you still have to pay those wages. So that did open me up about that. I would say as well, depending on the pay structure, I really think it depends on the pay structure to that, and what your stylist wants. So for example, if the pay, as a manager, if the payment wasn't, if you're commission based, I would say 100%, it's so much better to be a commission-based hairdresser sometimes. You're laughing because you're walking out the door and you don't have any responsibility.
Yeah.
So, but if you are on a wage and you might not be hitting target and you're giving a lot and you're not getting back, maybe it's worth having a conversation with your boss just to see what other options there are, so that you don't feel deflated. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like money's important to me,
100%.
as well. But
which I think turns people off sometimes. And I've felt, I am definitely not afraid to speak my mind and say, like that if I'm not totally happy with something. But again, the visa scenario makes it hard when you're in a position that you can't speak up as much. But I've felt like, like if you feel like you're not being rewarded for the work, you don't enjoy going in, or you don't want to push, you don't want to fit that extra correction in, or things like that. Sometimes it's like, I've noticed, and being money driven, it's like a negative thing, but it's like, well, that's how I survive, and that's how I can enjoy the other things in my life that I also like doing, or things like that. And I think sometimes the targets, like you said, if you don't hit your target, if I know I've had a crummy Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm not going to hit my target for that week. But then I'm stuck grinding out a Saturday. And, things like that can be really hard. It's so interesting. I never worked somewhere until I came here that there was different pay structures. I only ever worked at one salon. So it is interesting to see how every salon operates different and what is best, I guess, in that way. Or
absolutely. And, going back to that as well, like, I think money can be in different ways. And this is what's really important, is that sometimes when I say money, it might not necessarily be the physical money. It's actually like, okay, I decided I wanted to be a manager, an educator. I wanted to still do hair. So I wanted all three at the time. And this is where it became really difficult. But I also knew which one paid me higher. Okay. So
Which
I
is
had to
what?
give up, to be honest, probably doing hair.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, like doing hair, you're always financially laughing because, you know, but I wanted more inside my belly burning. I
Yeah.
needed desire. That's why I joined a reputable salon.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have just stayed in my
Yeah.
commission-based structure.
Yeah.
Um, and I got more out of education and more out of being a manager than I did, with all three of them equally.
Yeah.
That was working for me. That was great. And that's where I got my, I would say, financial kicks from.
Yeah.
Because I got it from doing what I loved.
Yeah.
But if I
Because you
was just
enjoyed
being
doing
paid,
all three.
yeah, and so even though I love money, and I know it sounds like that, God, I feel like all we do is talk about money, but I wouldn't have loved it if I was paid high with no personal goals or no
Yeah.
positions like education. I
Yeah.
needed something,
And
which
how
I'm
did you
sure
get
you're the
into
same.
doing the education? Were you educating with Not Another Salon, or like you learned from them and then were like, oh, I can relay this? Or how did that kind of transition for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally started back at my previous salon, Grow. And so I joined Matrix and Redken when I was like a baby educator. And I used to shadow all of these, like I'd look at them with awery, starry eyes, like,
Oh my
oh,
gosh,
how
so
exciting.
cool.
Yeah, and I loved working for them, did all my color keys, you know what we do. And it's so exciting to get a little color key behind you because you feel so, your consultation changes and you
Yeah.
just feel so empowered, like with knowledge of
Yeah.
color theory. And then I thought, yep, got to do more. So when I went to Not Another, we have an academy, we have Not Another Academy, and then we learned under Sophia, and then also lead courses ourselves for us. And then we were able to travel with that company, Not Another Academy, and teaching, which is brilliant because it's given us so much
Yeah.
networking and so much opportunity. And then I suppose looking back at those little parts of like education, like, you know, working for a company that's very structured like Redken and L'Oreal, you have to step into those shoes. So I'm really glad that I've seen both sides of education
Yeah, like it's
because
very
now,
almost formal
yeah,
in those
yeah,
brands, like those kind of grandfather brands. And then you have something
yes,
so different, so quirky, so out there, like Not Another. And it's like, okay, maybe both are too far each way. Like, how can we have a happy medium, or finding that that totally works for you or that totally doesn't is, yeah, that's so true.
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm a very big believer in like, you know, I never want to copy and
Yeah.
I always like to find my own unique selling point and things. And I think that when you leave a brand, you always have this moment where you go, especially a reputable brand, and you go, oh, everyone's expecting you to do something and everyone's expecting you to fall into that category. So it takes a little bit of time. I'm still not there. You got to find your USP and make it work
Yeah.
for you. And that's what I'm doing with Root Society,
Yeah.
um, which we'll talk about
Yeah.
in a
Tell
bit.
us.
But
This
yeah,
is,
it's
yeah.
definitely well, yeah. I mean, what do you want to know? It's like
Well, was
it's
that always
exciting.
something that you had as a vision for yourself, starting your own education platform? Like when you were educating, where you're like, I want to do this myself? Or was this something that was a fight or flight and we've had a pandemic and you've moved back to a new country and you don't have a job necessarily? I mean, you have, but you know,
No, I
yeah,
didn't.
you
You're
don't have a
right.
job. So if I that's how I came up with this and knew that I was going to do something with my time off. I think you and I are seem to be quite similar in that regard. There was no way I was sitting on the couch for 6 months twiddling my thumbs. Like I had to physically do something, and I wasn't getting paid either. I was off for that whole time. And did
Yeah.
you have that vision before the pandemic hit and you had the time off, or how did it all blossom and happen? And
Yeah, I mean, okay, so yeah, 100% COVID was a huge impact, a big kick up the bum. But I
Mhm.
came home at the end of last year, end of 2019, ready to go and work somewhere. And my dream's always been to have a salon.
Okay.
I've never really lied about this to anyone that I work
Yeah.
from. I've always wanted my own salon since I was a
Interesting. I
baby.
love that.
I know.
And
And
you
so
envisioned
it
that
is,
in Australia, and that's why in your head you always had to come back here?
yeah, which is so weird. I never actually
Yeah.
envisioned it in the UK. Don't ask me why. There's actually
Yeah.
no
Okay.
reason. I think yeah, I mean, I definitely could have done it over there. It was a great place to start something, but I think it's the family pull. So had to
Yeah.
come back for the family. So come back, you know, and if it was, yeah, I just always wanted a salon. And then I have just full speed ahead networking and doing what I can to connect with people in the industry. And it's all come actually from a few clients that I did when I first got here that I met through Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I love education, it was never the plan to start off as an education company before a salon. It was always going to be salon and then do a few drip feeding educations and, you know, see how we grow.
Yeah,
because
totally.
I can run a salon, and I feel very confident in the fact that, you know, that would be exciting. And so what do? I throw myself into something I don't know. Of course. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was that?
That's okay. That you came back to Australia from there. You were thinking about having a salon and how you came up with Root Society and if you always wanted to have that.
That's right. So it all came from this couple of Instagram clients that contacted me, and they were super honest. And they said, look, we've been following you for a few years, and, you know, we live in Melbourne. I see that you're here. Can I please come and meet you? And I was like, yeah, of course, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to say no to money, am I?
Yeah.
Not
so
going
to
say
do
no
a
to my,
class
to a new
with
client.
them?
No, this was a client getting their hair done.
Oh.
And so I sat them down. We had a little, you know, I had a little chat with them, and they just, we need help. I just never, ever get heard. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I love my color, but I sit there with anxiety and I don't know what's happening the whole time. And
no communication.
then no communication. And it got to about 3 or 4 of these Instagram clients that I started building up, and they all said the same thing. And I was like, and they weren't difficult colors. And I just thought, you know what? I'm so passionate about communicating, and I'm so passionate about consultation, and everyone can do a beautiful balayage. Like, yeah. Everyone can do beautiful techniques, and everyone's got their way. But when it, so I was like, we just need to, as an industry, communicate better with our clients.
Yeah. So
I'm not saying at all that I'm
4
better
hours shitting their pants.
Exactly.
Thinking that it's not going to come out right. They're watching everything you do, being like, oh my God, what is she doing?
Exactly. And I know that there's some brilliant consultations out there. I'm definitely not saying, you know, I'm not sitting here saying I'm the best, but I just knew that's what I wanted to do. That's where my passion was. And I thought I could open a salon right now, and I could get staff, and I could get really tired worrying about making, you know, ends meet for about 5 years. And then by the time I want to start preaching about consultation, I'll be 40 and I'll be
over it.
I'll hope, you know, not necessarily, you know, over it, but my passion wouldn't be buzzing as much as it is at this very present.
Yeah.
So present time. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with this. And as my best friend says, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You try again, but at least I tried.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah. That's why I'm doing it. And so Root Society has actually come from, excuse the pun, but I'm a little bit playful, and I am not ashamed to be a bit kinky and a bit playful, to say the least. And I thought, you know what, let's just call it Root Society. And the reason it's society instead of community is because, you know, it's a bit more fun. And we are a society, and we should all go back to our individual salons and do whatever we want to do with the beautiful information we take from any education platform.
Totally.
Because we are actually all doing the same thing.
Totally.
In different 4 walls. Don't you agree, Crystal?
Totally.
Like, I'm not in competition with you. You're not in competition with, you know,
I
the
share
girl down
clients
the street.
with, you know, I share a client with Tom. I share a client with my old girlfriends that I used to like.
Right.
I do the color, they do the cut still. And like, there's no harm in that. I don't know. Like, it is this thing like, oh, you shouldn't maybe post that photo because the haircut wasn't done within our company or vice versa. Or, you know, I know that they felt like that with my colors, like being like, they can't post it because I did the color. And it's like the client at the end of the day is going to go where they want to go. They have come in, I've done the color there. If they saw a haircut that they wanted within there or saw it felt comfortable, they would have had it. And that has nothing to do with me saying it or somebody else in, you know, my old salon or anywhere saying, okay, you should get your color done here. If they want to do it, they're going to do it.
100%. 100%.
They choose everything. They have everything on their phone. Everything is there for them to see. It's no secret what I do. If they're not coming to me, it's because they don't like what I do. So it's fine.
Or and also absolutely, and also that's why I say let's do our job really, really so super properly at the beginning. God, I can't speak English apparently. Okay. So let's do our job appropriately at the beginning and give them the best consultation, and then the second time they come in, let's do it even better. Instead of the second time just do same again. Let's keep it going so that they become monogamous to us. So they become, it's a relationship. And this is how I teach, is that your client is in a relationship with you, whether they're going to be a one night stand or whether they're going to be a monogamous. It's up to you, not up to them.
Totally. Love it.
Yeah. And so it's exciting.
What is kind of the next thing? Like, is the plan to go back to that harmonious 3 that gave you that joy of being in salon, doing education and managing? Like, where do you kind of now see it flowing and following? What's the next step? And how are you going to make profit as well? Like, it's hard if you're not on the floor while you're trying to do this, because this is starting. This isn't going to be your full wage. My podcast isn't paying me right now, but you have to make time. I know I have to cut down my hours to put the energy and the time, because I'm actually can't do it otherwise. Like there's not enough time in the day to do everything well. And I find when I am doing too much of this or too much of education or too much of in salon, my last client, they're not getting the best of me.
No, you're exactly right. So yeah, you have to make ends meet, don't you? So Crystal, I am working out of Frankie Salon. Pete Dunn, my friend, he's beautiful space at the minute.
We've had him on,
and
that's actually how I met you. We should discuss this, because as much as you were saying that those clients found you through Instagram and saw your work, well, I nearly died when I was like, because what I was looking for was a new salon space. I still wanted to do my beautiful balayage, my blondes, all of those things, but literally, I've said this to you, what I am looking for is doing the creatives, doing the melts, doing the scalp lighteners, because I wasn't getting that. And so initially, Frankie, actually, that salon didn't appeal to me because it was very similar to what I had come from. However, I had heard great things about Pete. My friend Mon worked there. Like, when you also are looking for somewhere that you're going to be happy with your management and with your team, like that's a huge part of it. Especially, again, I hate to harp on it, when you're on a visa, because that's it. You can't do your 3-month trial and change your mind, or, all these things that when I went in and Pete was like, well, I actually have CARLA RINALDI and she's going to be here and blah, blah, blah. And she worked not Another Salon. And I was like, what? My worlds are colliding. Like both things. I'm getting the creatives. I'm getting the education. I'm getting that experience of what I would have wanted. If Not Another Salon was here, that would have been where I went for that next step, because that is specifically what I was trying to upskill in. And I was going to have, it was like this moment of like, you must have seen my eyes falling out of my head being like, this is the best thing ever. And then Pete's like, we have no room. We have a tiny salon. Look at us. We're overflowing. You have to wait 4 months. And I was like, I can't.
Babe, I lost my job too. So I feel you. I was like, Pete's like, babe, don't have enough room. But do you know what? It's so true. But look at us now. And that's what's great. It's the networking, and it leads. If they had told us now, Crystal, like the world or something, that this is what we'd be doing, I wouldn't have believed them. So who knows what we're going to be doing in a year's time,
So true.
So getting back to your other question, I love that. There you go. This is how we network.
Full
Instagram besties.
Moments. Yeah.
Full circle moments. And I'm doing clients and I'm really enjoying spending time. Like I love my job again. Like I'm not going to be shy to any hairdressers that ever have hated their job. I've been there, it's called it's burnout. And I did. And I was like, I want more, but I love it again. And I'm so happy to be able to meet clients. I'm doing it all now, like extensions again and color corrections and men's cuts. And I'm loving it. I'm loving going back into it and doing like, instead of just, color. Meeting new people. So but I get to choose at the moment who I do and what I do. And that is really, really lovely. And yes, I'm taking a massive pay cut to work for Root Society, but you have to, exactly what you said. You have to cut your hours down because you will burn out. And, I felt it last night when I fell asleep at 9 o'clock on the couch.
Good for you. I went to bed at midnight.
Oh, that's okay, babe. We all do it.
Yeah, you have to. I ended up staying at the salon last night about 40 minutes after I'd done 2 color corrections, a half head of foils, a full other balayage correction, haircut, and I was like, I'm so tired. And I
I
still
know.
had 10 other things to do once I got home, I had to prepare for the podcast. Like there's just you can't not. So that's where I'm admiring watching you grow this business and grow your presence on Instagram and put everything into it, because it's something that needs to be credited, that it takes a lot of work, and especially when you are in the salon and trying to balance a social life. And now that we can have one, I found that really
Yeah, I
hard. It was
know.
easy in lockdown to throw myself into it because I didn't have the option of being hungover on Sunday because I went out Saturday night. And now I'm like, I can't go out Saturday night because I have so much to do on my days off. But then I'm like, what am I doing if I need to let some steam off too and go out? It's hard.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I literally sometimes, and someone might hurt me for saying this, but I was like, oh, I miss lockdown. I was like, I get so much done in lockdown. But then, we wouldn't be able to collect content and we wouldn't be able to network, and we probably wouldn't be, meeting new clients. So, you get the good and the bad with both. Absolutely. And I suppose as well, there was something I really wanted to tell you then, but it'll come back to me. But, with Root Society, one thing that I would love to do, and little goal with it as well, is that, I don't want to stop, because apprentices and young people in the industry is a real passion for me. Yeah. And being, working for myself and not having growing apprentices is not going to sit right for me forever. So I definitely think that long-term there needs to be some sort of space, or because at the moment I train Pete's and I love it. I love educating Pete's babies, and they're just amazing. And, but anyone's, I think that my next step will be courses for apprentices and courses for juniors, because they're the future.
Oh my God,
they're going to be teaching me how to.
That is what I wanted this for. They're the ones, and I think it's really hard to find apprentices. Like I've never noticed it before. I think I worked in really big salons that we always had multiple apprentices, and it was always there. But I can't operate my day the way that I'm operating it on the structure that I'm on right now without them. Like, and if they can't do it, like we were short, just say a day we were short apprentices, I had to leave my paint 4 times to put a toner on, put the ends on, do a root mount. We're doing all these complicated things that you can't operate to the level that you were without them. And that's also where I wanted to start this podcast. The same way you want to bring them up, I want this in college. I want this in high schools. I want them to know that hairdressing isn't this dumb career, this shitty career that has bad hours and it's going to take you so long and you're on your feet and it doesn't pay, all these things. And that is what people say. And I don't like that. And I think to have somebody like you wanting to put your time and your energy and focus into growing the next generation is amazing.
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, it's so important. I might be way ahead of myself, but I mean, I'd even like an apprentice educator just with me, like amazing. I mean, you know what? I had a boy in London who is now my best friend, and I trained him, got him from baby scratch, and he's one of the most amazing hairdressers now. Like he's teaching me things. He's now working for Davines as an educator, and he's so modest, he's so, and you know what makes me so happy is that still after 8 years, he'll call me no matter what salon we work at, and he goes, so I've just got a client and she's a level 8 and it's a little bit warm. And what do you reckon? And we're on the phone, and the clients love it. The clients love the fact that we're bantering, we're actually talking. And I don't think it's a shameful thing to ask for advice anymore from a senior colorist or from anyone. Yeah. Do you know when it was really taboo to say, totally, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you come help me? Yes. Don't tell the client.
Walk by. We used to have this alleyway, and not an alleyway, but the walk by. You're looking, and you're like, oh, can't see close up. I'm just going to go pick up that brush. And you go over, you're cleaning the station or something, but really you're looking at her roots to see what you need to do.
Exactly.
Oh God, too funny. Well, I
can't hear you. I had to put the charge on.
That's all right. Can you still hear me?
No, it's okay. We'll go back 1 second, gorgeous.
No rush. Put it on charge. I reckon
No, it's all good. We've got 10. We've got plenty.
That's okay. Plug it in if you need to. It's no worries.
No, because then I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
good. We
feel
got
like,
10%.
to be honest, like we've covered,
Yeah.
all the things that I think I really wanted to cover with you. If there's anything that you feel like you haven't, but I think what you're doing is great. I think to hear how
Thank
you
you.
went and made it from here to London and did, big things over there, and you won an award too for being the manager over there. It's not like you just have this self-hype. You've won the award, and I think
Thank you.
it's
It was
very
a very
apparent.
exciting night.
It's very apparent to hear you, like, that you are passionate about it, that you love it, and that you have this different level of knowledge to just somebody who's worked on the floor. And I think that gives you a leg up and an advantage. And yeah, I've enjoyed.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this too. I think it's really nice to meet like-minded people, and we should keep it going, definitely.
Yeah.
And when this COVID thing's ended, wouldn't it be great? We should have a massive, massive hairdressing party event, just a networking event for young entrepreneurs. That's what we need to do.
Oh my God. Write it down. Write it down. This is going into the not 3. This is before the 3 p.m. journaling.
I'm telling you, babe, I've already got ideas ticking after this conversation.
Send them my way.
I got to go do a client. So I've got to go back into balayage mode. I've got to get out.
I know.
Mode.
I start work in 45 minutes. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go, gorgeous. I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much, Carla. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Successful Stylist Unfoiled. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube to get all the notifications of our weekly episodes.